Okay, in this tutorial I'm going to talk a little bit about digestion and absorption. So let's start with what are those two words. So digestion, well, I've got that up in front of you, is when food is broken down mechanically and chemically. And the reason we have to break down food is so that it can be absorbed into the bloodstream and transported around the body. So even if you were to take a hamburger and smear it all over your body, it wouldn't get into the inside, and even then it wouldn't really get into the cells very well. So we need an effective way of getting food, breaking it down into tiny pieces, into the components it's actually made out of, and transporting, sending those around the bodies so that every part of our body actually gets some energy and some building blocks for growth and repair and doing all the things it needs to do. So, fantastic. Digestion is breaking down food mechanically and chemically so that it can be transported around by the bloodstream to all the parts of our body. Okay, so there are two types of digestion. Physical digestion is the first one, is the mechanical breakdown of food into smaller pieces. So that's basically to get the food around the body, first we need to kind of break it down a little bit so we can actually work on it. So the mouth chews the food, that's the main place we probably get this mechanical digestion, but the stomach does a bit of mechanical digestion too. The stomach is where food is churned, so churning is when the stomach kind of contracts to kind of mush up and mix and kind of help break up the food a little bit. Cool, so those are the two places we get mechanical digestion. Chemical digestion is the breakdown of food into its chemical components. So that's basically saying, like we looked at, proteins are made out of amino acids. So it's breaking down proteins into their amino acids. Starch, for instance, is made out of sugar, out of things like glucose, a type of sugar. So breaking down starch into that sugar. Or fats are made out of fatty acids and glycerol. So it breaks them down into those things. So guys, two places we get chemical digestion. Mouth. In the mouth there are some enzymes in our saliva which break down, in particular, those are enzymes that break down starch into sugar. So there's an enzyme in our saliva called amylase which breaks down starch into sugar. In our stomach we've got a whole lot more enzymes with acid that also help to break down especially things like proteins into amino acids. In the start of the small intestine, the duodenum, the very start of the small intestine, just after the stomach, we actually have some more enzymes added, and we also get a bit of bile added from the liver, which helps to break down break up the fats, and then some enzymes will break the fats into their glycerol and fatty acids. So guys, chemical digestion, here I've got that in the small intestine. We've also got, like I said, a little bit of bile added by the gallbladder, which helps break down lipids, and other enzymes are added by the pancreas, and that's where we get, if there's still any protein or any starch, but especially those fats are broken up into their chemical components. So let's just have a little quick look at that again. The enzymes will break starch into glucose, into sugar. So the starch, this long chain broken up into pieces into glucose. It will break proteins into their amino acids, and it will break lipids into glycerol, the red bit here, and the fatty acids, the three bits. Someone used to always say to me that lipids look like cricket wickets. So the bales, the little bit that sits on top, the red bit, and I think it's called the stumps, or the yellow bits here. So there we go, digestion by enzymes, lipids broken down into glycerol and fatty acid. So why do we break them down? Well, again, they need to be small enough that it can be absorbed into the blood. So that's what actually happens in the small intestine. Now at the very start of the small intestine, the duodenum, there was still some digestion going on, but after that it's all about absorption. So what is absorption? Well, the food particles are now small enough, once they've been digested and broken down, they're now small enough that they can pass into the small intestine, into the wall of the small intestine, and from there into the bloodstream. So this is the small intestine, and food is going through it from top to bottom. This is the tube, And around the small intestine are wrapped lots of small blood vessels. So the food particles, once they've been completely digested and broken up into their chemical components, those chemical components can diffuse, can slowly move through the lining and into these blood vessels, and they go around the blood, where they basically then they can come out of the vessels and feed the cells. So they feed our cells with materials and provide the energy that our cells need to run. So this is how basically the food gets all around our body. Now absorption happens, like I said, in the small intestine, and the small intestine has this massive surface area, and it needs this really large surface area to effectively be able to absorb all the food particles. How does it have such a large surface area? Well, the small intestine, for a start, one thing that gives it such a large surface area is the fact that it's so long. This thing is actually meters and meters long, several meters long inside a human. And so, guys, yeah, the small intestine, the fact that it's so long already gives it quite a lot of surface area. But it wouldn't be nearly enough without these special folds. So we've got these special folds on the surface of the small intestine. These folds basically increase the amount of surface area. So think about it, we get more surface in the same amount of space. And those folds even have tiny folds, or little finger-like projections, little bits that stick out themselves. So these are called microvilli. So these are called villi, the little folds, and microvilli, the little bits that even stick out of them. And so actually, if you were to take the lining, the surface of the small intestines, and if we could somehow stretch or iron it out flat, completely flat, it would actually cover the area of a tennis court. So all those folds all folded up means that we can fit an area of the tennis court in the length of the small intestines in our tummy. So massive surface area, and that really helps to absorb things. Now this technology, or this idea, has actually we've taken advantage of that. If you look at things like towels or microfiber cloths, well, basically, if you've ever tried to dry yourself off with a t-shirt, it's not very effective, because a t-shirt's just flat kind of cotton. A towel works much better because it's got these little folds that come up and down, little loops of cotton that stick up out of it. So the towel has a lot more surface area. It's going to be a lot better at absorbing the water off us. And you may have these special camping cloths, you may have seen those, or microfiber cloths. Basically, they're towels that not only have the loops, each loop has a little bit of cotton sticking out the side of it, little bits sticking out the side of it, so that gives it an even bigger surface area and makes it even more effective at absorbing water. And they make really good camping towels because they're often not very big, but they absorb so much. So it's a small, lightweight towel that you can, dry yourself off, and it works really well. So there we go. Small intestine works the same way. Lots of little folds and loops and bits that stick out that basically give our small intestine a really large surface area. Alright, the large intestine is also involved in absorption, but it doesn't absorb food. All the food has already been absorbed, all the food particles. So now basically the large intestine absorbs any remaining water. So as the food goes through, up the side, across, and down the other side, over here the rectum, basically where the feces, the poo builds up, as it goes through, any leftover water, or at least most of the leftover water, gets absorbed. And if we don't do that properly, then obviously our feces are going to be quite runny. You're essentially going to have diarrhea. So large intestine is really important in recovering water so we don't get dehydrated, and also just storing the wastes and controlling their release, when it's convenient. So guys, that's it for that tutorial, and we'll get on straight to the next one.